you for attending and joining us today. Now, I'm going to start off with a question. How many of you know how to play a musical instrument? Raise your hands. Wow. Oh, my goodness. A lot of you do. Okay. Wow, we can start a band in here, I think. A few years ago, I attended my first piano recital. I didn't want to go, but my piano teacher was very convincing. And she even asked me, she said, "Do you want to compose your own piece and play it?" I said, "Absolutely not, but I will come." So the day comes, and it's my turn to play the piano. I get up there, I sit down, my teacher's right next to me because we're doing a duet, which I thought was a good idea, but I was wrong. I start playing, I'm thinking, I don't want to mess up, and I messed up. And she leans in after it was over and she said, "Nice recovery." Now, when nice recovery is the highlight of your performance, you can kind of see how the recital went. So I went back to my chair and I'm watching everybody else. And the next person goes, and the next person goes, and the next person goes. And every person is better than the person before. And it dawns on me, this recital is in order of capability. And I was in the beginning. By the time we got to the end, the gentleman playing Beethoven was so good, I would have paid to see him perform. And for a while, I was like, wow, he had so much talent. And then I started thinking, you know what? He did the reps. I took piano as a kid, and I quit 40 years ago. I didn't do the reps. He did the reps. And everyone in that room could tell the difference between who did the reps and who didn't. I think AI is going to be exactly the same way. Organizations who continually experiment and learn are going to create something that is beyond what any other organization can create. Everyone will be able to tell one day who did the reps and who didn't. Customers will be able to tell. Employees will be able to tell. The financial performance of the company, you'll be able to tell. And it's not just that they're going to be better at AI, it's going to be more than that. They are going to permanently change the expectations of customers and employees. Now, I know a lot of you, AI is at the top of your agenda. And I was with some CIOs a couple months ago, and they said, you know what? It's not really the deploying AI that's the hard part. It's the operationalizing the AI cost effectively, securely, and with the right controls. That's the part that's hard right now. And I've heard from some customers that shadow AI is worse than shadow IT was with cloud. You have, I see some shaking heads. You have employees that are experimenting. You have business units that are deploying their own tools independently. And you have teams that are embedding AI so fast that the governance can't keep up. Some customers are having trouble even learning how to communicate with each other. One customer told me, if I'm communicating with somebody about AI, there's a 100% chance that we're misunderstanding each other. And what we're seeing is that infrastructure needs are changing because AI is changing. What you need for inference, real-time processing, where the decisions are made. Then agentic AI, another complexity as you try to implement agents. So it's changing continuously, and customers are having a little bit of a hard time keeping up. It's not just deploying AI, it's also, where's AI being used? Where's the data coming from? How much is my token bill going to be this month? Another change is that edge is growing. By the end of 2027, it's predicted that 50% of processing will be on the edge. And servers that were made for the data center aren't always a good fit for the edge. The edge is harder. The edge is different. It's harder for 3 reasons. 1, management. You don't have the experts at the edge, which means the visibility and control remotely has to be better. 2, security. You're not behind those secure data center walls anymore. It's out there on the edge with customers and employees. Physical security is an issue. And then lastly, an edge server has to be tough to survive the environmental conditions at the edge. So we're talking about AI, we're talking about edge, we're talking about also modernization being a big priority and on the innovation agenda for customers, and virtualization. And all of these, the same question exists. How can I move faster, cost effectively, without increasing my complexity and my risk? Now, I know this past year has been even more difficult than normal. With this supply crisis in the industry, things have been even more difficult. So we have a few suggestions for what might help. First of all, understand your true usage. Unfortunately, a lot of customers don't have enough insight to what's maybe being underutilized. Where are there inefficiencies? And with our HPE Morpheus with our Cloud Physics Plus, you can see exactly where your inefficiencies are. And you could potentially save money. I've heard from many customers about how helpful this is, so you may want to look into that. Second, optimize what you have. I already mentioned virtualization. Virtualization is getting too expensive for many customers, and with HPE Morpheus VM Essentials, you could save on your virtualization cost and then get the infrastructure you need with the savings that you're getting. And then the third one, modernize with intent. So a lot of the customers that are modernizing, they're picking the right infrastructure, the right consumption model, and they're building for the future. And if you need help with that, if you need help getting the infrastructure that you need today, we have a new HPE Financial Services program. It's called the 99 Advantage Program. And it's very simple. For the first 90 days, there's no payments. And then for the next 9 months, 1% per month. So you get an entire year before you make a full payment. And many customers are taking advantage of this. In fact, it's the fastest ramping financial services offer we've ever had in the history of HPE. And one of the customers that's seeing the benefit is DNEG. They had some challenges acquiring their equipment, and they leveraged this to buy a ProLiant virtualization solution. So when it comes to your innovation agenda, we're here to help you operationalize AI, expand your edge. We have the right infrastructure and the right support to help you power your innovation agenda. And to hear more about that, I'd like to welcome on the stage John Carter, the Vice President of Mainstream Compute.
All right, hello everybody. So you just heard a bunch of big topics in there: AI, modernization of our infrastructure, virtualization, edge. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So we're going to jump right in here, but I want to start by saying that you've trusted us for over 30 years to be your innovation partner. And in the days like these where things are moving so fast, we really invite you to engage us even more and have conversations about how your environment is changing and what that means to your infrastructure, not just today, but as we think about what's coming next. You know, I was having dinner the other night with a CIO here at the show, and we sat down and we were talking about AI, and we were talking about the costs that are associated with running these big models in the cloud, and how it's very similar to things we saw with virtualization and moving workloads out to the cloud 10 plus years ago. And the customer said to me, they said the phrase, "I've really got to bring token generation back to earth." And it made me stop for a second, because I realized if somebody had said that to me 6 months ago, I would have had no idea what they were talking about. But the evolution of these workloads is happening so quickly that you have to be able to have a conversation with someone who lives and breathes this stuff every day to even stand a chance of having the right infrastructure to be successful. And these numbers up on the screen really paint that picture, that 88% of you all, our customers, plan to spend more on AI in the next year. 40% of you plan to include some sort of agent, some sort of agentic workload as a part of that plan. But while many of you are starting POCs with things like agents, only 23% of those surveyed were actually able to scale that from a POC to something real in production. And that's because this workload, these sets of workloads are so different than anything we've seen in the past. Right? They require a different kind of infrastructure. They require different things from your servers. You can't just take a Swiss Army knife that you've always used and expect that to be the best platform. Now, certainly there are use cases for all kinds of different stuff, right? Start small, start with what you have, and then scale. But as you start to scale, it's so important to think about agentic use cases and what they really need. They need to think about higher memory bandwidth, right? Traditional systems are a bottleneck. They need to think about bringing the latency of that down, because you've got to feed data into your GPUs to get every bit of ROI you can out of that resource. You've got to think about coherency of memory and data moving across your processor, into your memory, into your GPUs. How do I keep that straight? How do I simplify that complexity? Let's not even start talking about NUMA complexities as we go single to dual socket, right? Even more complexity. So how do we start addressing this in a new way? Well, we've been partnering for years with our great friends over at not at HPE, that's where we are, at NVIDIA. And today I'd like to invite up on the stage Chris Marriott, VP and GM for Enterprise Platforms and Solutions, to talk a little bit more about that innovation. Chris?
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us in Vegas here.
Absolutely.
So we've been doing quite a bit of work over the past few years, and I think the latest iteration of that is something we're going to share today.
Yeah.
It's something we announced 2 weeks ago at Computex with you guys, and this is a brand new platform for us called the HPE ProLiant Compute DL394 Gen 12 server. So why don't we go over here? We've got one live on stage. Why don't we go take a look?
Absolutely.
All right. So this is our brand new server. We just announced this 2 weeks ago, and this is in partnership with NVIDIA. It is a 2U air-cooled server leveraging NVIDIA's Vera CPUs. There's 2 of those in the system. And the really cool thing here from our perspective is we've taken all of the great performance that you guys build into these processors, and we've added in ILO, which means that customers get our standard ProLiant experience, the tools you're used to, the security you're used to. I don't have to worry about special trainings for how do I update the server. It all works like every other HPE ProLiant system you've got. But Chris, for those who aren't quite as familiar with Vera, can you share a little bit about what's unique about this CPU?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll take 30 seconds. And if we just go back in time a couple of years, I think if I recall correctly, the evolution of this platform, we actually came to visit John in Seattle. Beautiful city, and we visited one of the fine establishments downtown, a dive bar. And so I am so super excited to see the ProLiant brand on one of our Vera CPUs as part of that whole journey, but it proves kind of the legend that all good things come out of dive bars. And so the DL394, incredible. No, but really to look at the Vera CPU and why we made the architectural changes that we did, we really have to look at the AI applications and how the workloads have evolved. In the past, let's say, year of infrastructure, it was we were feeding GPUs basically for the training and inference of large-scale LLMs. And really, agentic AI has changed everything. Agents don't just retrieve or generate data. They're really, like, they're tool calling, they're calling APIs, they're querying databases. They're doing incredible amounts of work. And so basically, for the world's first CPU, we designed from the ground up to power all of that agentic work. And so really, there's three core pillars as part of Vera. Number one is we chose a monolithic design. So all 88 of our custom Olympus CPU cores are in a single piece of silicon that avoid any chiplet latency or anything else across the fabric. And so it allows us to focus on just blisteringly fast single-threaded performance. The second part is we chose a new memory subsystem. And so we based that on an ultra-dense LPDDR5 new memory for Vera. And so at 1.2 terabytes per second, it feeds all of those sandboxes and everything required for agentic AI. And the third is we leveraged NVLink, our coherent chip-to-chip interconnect. And so in the DL394, with the two Veras, NVLink operates at 1.8 terabytes per second to communicate across those. That's 7 times faster than PCIe Gen 6 and like 2 to 3 times faster than traditional CPUs. And so all of those evolutions of Vera is really what makes Vera like the purpose-built platform for running agents and agentic AI in the enterprise.
Great, thanks, Chris. So it's not so much about replacing GPUs, it's really about working in parallel to make sure you're getting the most out of that resource.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got a number of partners working on these systems with you, but when you think about the partnership between NVIDIA and HPE, what does that mean to customers in your mind in terms of the unique value they're going to get? Why buy from us?
Yeah, no, it's like, I think it's foundation, like our deep partnership, like what is enabling customers to do new is really to take AI out of the sandbox and build an enterprise-ready productive tool for people to use. Enterprises used to have to maybe look at a compromise between either deploying state-of-the-art AI infrastructure or having all the security and governance of a standard enterprise platform. And so the DL384, with the integration of ILO with Vera, the world's most powerful agentic CPU to run those agents, they don't have to make that compromise anymore. And I think if I just go back and to Antonio's keynote and we bring it back to his last 3 kind of guiding principles, right? Number 1 was architect with intention. And I think check, if we look at this platform with Vera, ILO, ProLiant brand, that enterprise promise that you bring your customers in that platform, I think we've succeeded that one. Number 2 is start with a network. And so at NVIDIA, we design enterprise reference AI factories. And so we stand those up at NVIDIA, thousands of GPUs, and we validate all the hardware and software. And we start with NVIDIA Spectrum-X networking across all of that. And so now with this being integrated into private cloud AI, offering an opinionated way to get started and deploy AI, I think that one's checked. And the third one is choose the right partner. And if we look of where we are and these incredible solutions, I think we have the answer with that too. So super excited to continue working together.
Fantastic. Chris, thanks for joining us up here for a few minutes today.
Absolutely.
And talking through this great new platform.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Appreciate the partnership. All right, so while this is a great platform, AI is certainly not one size fits all, and we know that here at HPE, and that's why we have a broad portfolio of offerings. Everything from edge devices, where you might have very unique opportunities to do something a little bit different, all the way up to your standard data center class, and even full rack and row scale systems. And the nice thing is that we pair all of this with our solution with PCAI, which gives you that turnkey capability of really being able to get up and moving very quickly, taking all of the complexity out of the solution for you so you can focus on the outcomes for your end customers. But speaking of edge, this is the next one Krista talked about a little bit. So let's jump a little bit here and talk more about edge and what that really means. I've had a lot of great conversations with you all this week about, well, what's really changing? This isn't the first time we've talked about edge workloads. We've talked about edge workloads for 20 years. And I think the real evolution, as I've thought about this, is not so much that edge is new. It's really what you're trying to do at the edge that's new. Is no longer is the edge a small system that sits somewhere in a retail store and it's got to run some little basic workloads, and we're not too worried about it, right? We need just enough power out there, it'll be fine. What we're seeing is now we're being asked to run real data center grade requirements, real heavy workloads with acceleration and security and all kinds of I/O and networking needs in an edge platform. But there's so many new considerations when we start to think about this. I mean, in a data center, you've got physical security, right? You've got security guards sitting outside. You've got walls that keep people out of those data centers. You don't have that at the edge. You've got dedicated networking in a data center, so you don't have to think about, well, what happens if I lose contact with the device? You don't have that at the edge. You've got to worry about thermals. You've got to worry about environmentals like dust. There's all of these things that are new requirements that a data center built system doesn't know how to deal with. And so we've really had to start reevaluating what an edge portfolio means, because it's not just little IoT devices. It's not just a tower server sitting in someone's desk somewhere and, oh, it'll be fine. These things have to work. They have to be performant, and they have to be up. And so today I'm introducing another new server for us. We'll walk over again. This is the brand new HPE ProLiant Compute EL2000 server. Right here. So this server, you can actually see, is incredibly small, incredibly light. And the surprise is this is two servers. This is a modular server system built for the edge and built for the extreme requirements that are now being requested at the edge. So you have two system options with the EL2000. You've got a single height EL120 server, which uses Intel's Xeon 6 processors. It gives you a full data center server class experience. You can also move up to what we call our EL240 server node. And that really takes a double height server node here. It gives you that same compute foundation, but it adds expansion for a full 600-watt accelerator. So you can take a leadership class accelerator like an H100, like one of the leadership cards like an MI350P from AMD. Any of those cards you're thinking about today, those can go into this system and work seamlessly in edge environments. Now, the other cool thing about this, I mentioned that the requirements of where these things are being deployed is changing, and what we expect is changing. This system is fully ruggedized to withstand shock and vibe. It's got an optional dust filter to be able to keep those environmentals out. It will go in temperatures up to 55 degrees Celsius and down to negative 40 degrees Celsius. It is small enough to fit under your airplane seat on the way back from Vegas this week. Please don't take it off the show floor. We've actually had folks go through airport security with these, so it does actually work. Very, very rugged system, very cool. This will be available for sale later this summer, and it'll be out on the show floor the rest of the week to take a look at live in person. All right? So now we're going to switch gears again, completely other side of the spectrum, because that's kind of the theme today, is we're going to talk about big data. So more and more, whether you're talking about data generated at the edge, whether you're talking about it generated in the data center, the requirements for data are exploding. And this, again, not a new trend. But in 2026 alone, more than 221 zettabytes of data have been created. Now, that's all not mission-critical data, but a lot of it is. And the more of this data we can generate from actual live streaming use cases, the more important it is to be able to take that data and pull actual insight out of it. Now, this is where our customers start to run into new kinds of problems, right? How do I actually do that in a performant way? I'm running out of memory. I can't deal with all these systems that it takes now to pair together to actually be able to handle a data set that's that big. I need uptime protection. These workloads like ERP must remain up. They're absolutely mission critical. I can't do that on a standard server. Well, this is where our new server comes into play, the HPE Compute Scale-Up Server 3250. So that's our middle guy right here. So this is actually a single node of the 3250, which is a 4-socket system. What's really cool about this system, and you can see up on the screen on either side, you can't see up on the screen. When it comes back, you can see up on the screen that we can actually scale up to 4 of these in a solution, and we tie those together with a proprietary technology that we call a node controller that gives you a bunch of unique benefits here. So what it really does is where our competitors rely on basically putting together a bunch of scale-out systems to be able to manage these extremely large in-memory kind of systems. We don't. We create one coherent system of up to 16 sockets, and we are the first to be able to achieve 64 terabytes of in-memory performance and have exceeded the benchmarks that SAP HANA has available to date. So we are not only the first ones to achieve the 48 terabyte benchmark, but we have exceeded it to a benchmark they don't even have yet. So we are leading the industry here in performance. On top of that, because we have one single coherent system, you don't have to worry about multiple OSs. You don't have to worry about being able to manage these systems and the security issues that happen between them. Because of our node controller, we can achieve 100 times faster node-to-node nearline performance between these systems. So all kinds of advantages for your most critical workloads to be able to go to a system that was actually built from the ground up to support them. Now, all of this is great, but we've talked about data here across the board, whether that's in AI, whether that's at the edge, whether that's in these large scale-up in-memory systems. To protect that data, you have to start at the foundation. And for any of you who have been to Discover with me in the past, I talk about this every single year, so it wouldn't be Discover without it. But HPE ILO is our foundation for that security message. We are the only OEM in the market today that designs and builds our own ASIC for the BMC. And we do that because it allows us to build in specific hardware-level features that protect you in a way that no one else can. For instance, ILO 7 has built in something that we call a secure enclave. This is actually a protected part of the architecture where we can secure things like certificates, keys, et cetera, in a way that cannot be accessed from anywhere but ILO. And we hear a lot of, well, these systems, a lot of them are in the data center, right? So nobody's going to come and actually clip something onto my chip and steal those secrets somehow. Well, we just talked about how the edge, that's not true anymore, right? Or what if they take a system that they bought legitimately, take the keys out of it, and then use that to attack your data center? There are so many attack vectors that are out there today, and we now have a unique way that prevents those secrets from being tampered with or taken out of a system to attack yours. On top of that, this is where we build in our secure ILO root of trust, down with hash values burned into the silicon itself as the very foundation of the security chain as it builds up through the firmware, through the OS, through the application. If that first link can't be trusted, none of the rest of it matters. And so this is why it is absolutely critical to be able to design this security component from the ground up, and that's why we continue to invest in ILO in the way that we do. Now, the other great thing about ILO is it allows us the capability to build on top of it. And this is where you've heard us talk about HPE Compute Ops Management. So we can truly secure from the physical chip, from the silicon, up into your cloud experience. We have created a secure method that when you use HPE Compute Ops Management, or COM, we can securely make a connection there from the system to the cloud, never the other way around. We make sure that this is a very, very safe method of communication. And now you can manage basically all of your ILO functionality either through an API or through a GUI with COM. You can do every single thing you can do in ILO via this tool. You can aggregate systems together no matter where they are. We're talking about those disaggregated edge stories. This is a real game changer. We have done studies with third-party analysts showing that COM can actually save you up to 75% of the time it takes to manage these servers at the edge, reduce downtime, and most importantly, save cost. I don't have to send somebody out to my remote office in a closet somewhere, move aside the mop, and deal with the server. I can just remotely go into it. I can upgrade, I can provision, I can do everything I need to do remotely. I get health status updates, and now we've even got some cool new stuff that we're announcing this week. First of all, something we're calling advisory intelligence. We have built in agentic AI to now continuously look at the configuration of the system and provide you back guidance on things that you can improve and optimize. So yet another step forward towards autonomous management. You're also going to see a new feature where we've actually paired with our friends over in HPE Networking, and we can take all of the goodness of COM and start pairing that with all of the goodness of Mist. And bringing those things together and integrating them so that you no longer have the networking guy pointing fingers and the compute guy pointing fingers, and everybody can now have a coherent conversation about where things are and where the problems exist. So breaking down those barriers between your infrastructure groups. Finally, you heard Krista talk about modernization and virtualization. It was not that long ago we all stood in here and talked about the Broadcom changes that we saw a few years ago. And we continue to see customers think about what is the right place for me to optimize? Where do I need to look at software licensing? Where do I need to change how I'm thinking about deploying my applications? Well, this is even more relevant today as we think about all of the changes in the supply chain environment where we've seen costs continue to go up. Software licensing continues to be one of the biggest opportunities we see with our customers to save dollars and be able to continue to move forward with what they need to do for IT. We've seen customers save up to 90% in licensing costs when switching to VME. That is a massive improvement over what many of them were paying, and it's allowed them to move forward and purchase the systems that they need to function as a business. So a lot of stuff to talk about today. Hopefully you all get a chance to visit us on the show floor, but now we're going to take a second and hear from some real customers. So I'd like to invite up Justin McGarry to share with us some more.
So thanks, John. I am really thrilled to be here with all of you today. As we discussed throughout this session so far, technology decisions are shaping long-term business outcomes. Whether customers are scaling AI, modernizing virtualization, expanding out to the edge, or protecting their mission-critical workloads, they need a partner that helps them move faster with less risk and better economics. And that's what HPE ProLiant is built for. And we pride ourselves on being able to support you and your business with industry-leading innovations like you just saw. And the logos behind me not only represent customers who have chosen HPE ProLiant, but customers who are partnering with us to power what's next for their businesses. And we know that hearing from us is great, but hearing from customers like each and every one of you is even better. So today, I want to share with you customers who are turning plans into reality across AI, edge, and finally, virtualization. So we have an amazing customer panel to help us unpack this. So please welcome and join me on stage, Dooley, Katrin, John, and Michael. So welcome, and thank you all for joining me today for this conversation. I really appreciate it. So let's start with, I think, each of your organizations. We'll go there. You're all operating in very different environments today. If I think about Dooley from the manufacturing floors to John with all the genome sequencing work that you and the team are doing at Roche, down to the racetrack, Michael, with you and the team, and then finally Katrin with you and Enterprise IT. You're all navigating some major technology shifts right now, and we want to get into that conversation a little bit. I want to talk about what challenges have really sparked your infrastructure transformations, and so maybe we'll start there. Dooley, with you, like, why now for some of the transformation that you're driving at Ford Motor Company?
At Fordham, people always think about us as manufacturing, right? And we are, right? But we're a bank also. I don't know if many people knew that, right? We run a lot of critical applications all over, and we have 70 plus different global manufacturing sites and non-manufacturing on top of our data centers, right? So the real challenge and opportunity, I guess, for us, right, is that across a global footprint, we have many data centers, if you will, right, at each of these manufacturing, non-manufacturing sites. And the challenge there is that they don't all follow a common architecture and a pattern, right? So it makes it very difficult to have predictable predictability, I would say, right? Because of that lack of common architecture. So the transformation that we're really doing is trying to enable standards there, right? To get consistent behavior, right? And that's the opportunity. And so we're on that journey right now. We're not fully there yet, but it's work in progress.
Okay, so standardization is really key for you and the team at Ford then.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Dooley. So, Katrin, let's talk a little bit. I know AMD's grown pretty significantly. Congratulations to you and the team over the last couple of years. How has all this change driven what you need from an infrastructure perspective?
Yeah. No, thanks, Justin. And yeah, as you said, AMD has grown significantly over the past several years, and that combined with the AI acceleration has really made us change what we need from our infrastructure and how we look at it and where do we go forward. We're now supporting a much broader workload across our environments here, ranging from traditional enterprise applications to cloud-native environments, as well as AI use cases. And all of that we have to support without adding any additional complexity or cost, right? That's sort of the expectation. And that's what really prompted us to step back and take a look at how our virtualization strategy was aligned with where the business is going.
Okay. Appreciate that, Katrin. All that growth and transformation you and the team have been going through and thinking through that. And we'll dive deeper on the virtualization piece here in a moment. John, I'd love to just kind of hear a little bit about your environment and everything you're dealing with at Roche. You're working in one of the most data-intensive environments in healthcare today. Tell me a little bit about, and the audience here, kind of some of the challenges you're working through at Roche and what sparked your transformation.
Yeah, and maybe just a quick word about Roche to kind of set the stage for our need. So as a company, there's this pharma to diagnostics continuum. And internally, we talk about one Roche, this idea that those two go hand in hand, the therapies, right, and the diagnostics, the information to help tailor those. Now you think about personalized medicine. Here, sequencing plays an essential role in delivering to that vision. So to your question, Justin, the challenge and the business priority that sparked our AI and infrastructure investments has really been on the sheer volume of sequencing data, right, and its analysis needs. And maybe just if I can kind of expand on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Right, so as an industry, we're seeing explosive growth across multiple areas. You take oncology and rare disease, both clinical and translational research. That growth means bigger data sets. It means deeper sequencing. It means more pressure to move from raw genomic data to usable insights. And so to help customers meet the need on the data generation side, to do so as accurately, as cost effectively, and as quickly as possible, Roche this summer will be launching Exelios One. This is the first instantiation of a fundamentally new DNA sequencing technology. One of the strengths of the technology is its unprecedented base call production rates. We've been developing this technology for well over a decade, almost two actually, and we're incredibly excited about the upcoming launch. But one of the things that we're also very cognizant of is with these base call production rates, if our customers don't have the infrastructure to handle at that rate, their analysis could be bottlenecked. This could actually throttle the use of the instrument. So to prevent that, we've matched those capabilities with advances in AI, HPC, and particularly important here, edge compute. We do anticipate the need to continue those investments going forward through and beyond launch as the technology progresses.
Yeah, some fascinating work you and the team are doing, John, at Roche. Michael, I want to turn to you, and Formula One is a sport of constant evolution. Tell us a little bit about what sparked the technology transformation that I know you've been driving with the team.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're absolutely right, Justin. Every race weekend generates new data, new insights, and most importantly, new opportunities to learn. It's very much a learning industry. Everything is focused around our performance. How do we make that car go faster? And naturally, we're super competitive. We want to win more than all of our competitors. And our sole aim at the start of every season is to win races and win championships. Now, to do that, obviously, the car is packed with sensors generating terabytes of telemetry data every weekend. That data informs simulation, enables engineering decisions, helps with strategy, and also actually helps to shape the next iteration of the car as well. At the same time, it's worth noting that we're operating within a highly regulated industry. We have technical regulations, we have sporting regulations, and more recently we have financial regulations, which effectively come in as a hard cost cap. That makes our life far more challenging. So every technology investment that we make has to help us work smarter, deliver greater value from the data that we've already generated or new data that we're going to be creating. So we wanted to make sure that we had an infrastructure foundation that could scale with the growing data demands of the team, helping us all contribute our 1/10 of a second to the overall performance, hopefully meaning that we end up on the podium post race day on a Sunday.
Yeah, we want you to keep winning those races, Michael. John, let's go back to you, and I want to go a little bit deeper. I know as sequencing volumes and data demands really continue to grow for you and the team at Roche, what capabilities matter most to you in the infrastructure, supporting those workloads, especially if you'd step back and you really think about these faster insights and how they can directly impact patient outcomes?
Yeah. Well, you said it. One is speed. I mean, Michael, we just heard from Michael. He needs speed to win races, right? But speed matters in genomics too, because expectations for measurement and analysis are changing fast. What used to take days and weeks is now moving toward real-time insight. Now, for us, that's driven in part by our core technology, the SBX, or sequencing by expansion chemistry, the nanopore sensor array. This then raises the bar for infrastructure, speed, reliability, and the ability to process enormous quantities of data in real time where the work is happening. That's happening at the edge. For us, that edge is a wet lab.
Okay.
So a big part of our focus has been not only on the sequencing tech, but on advances in accelerated integrated analysis, because we do see opportunities for faster answers to directly impact clinical decisions and patient outcomes. Great example of this is our work with Boston Children's Hospital and Broad Clinical Labs. This past October, together, we set the Guinness World Record for fastest human whole genome sequencing technique.
Wow,
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
Give you a big round of applause for that. Congratulations.
You look at sequencing times today, the fastest times, in practice, right, with state-of-the-art technology. The sequencing step alone takes 1 to 2 days. Okay. Excellios SBX set the record in under 4 hours.
Wow.
Now you can run this day in and day out at 5 hours, and routinely do so. So conceivably going, let's say in a NICU scenario, going from collecting a sample in the morning to returning results same day. And that's not just a milestone. That shows what's possible when advances in sequencing are combined with advanced compute to compress timelines from days to mere hours where every minute counts.
Just some really incredible work, John, that you and the team are doing. And congratulations again on that Guinness World Record. That's incredible. Michael, let's continue this conversation around winning. So Michael, you mentioned that at the start, winning, of course, the championship is the goal every year. And by the way, you guys are off to a fantastic start. So congratulations on that. HPE recently expanded our partnership with the Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team with our new self-driving network campaign. We got a chance to see that yesterday in Antonio's keynote, and it was fun watching the banter back and forth with the drivers. It's a great reminder that I know while fans see the drivers and the cars, there's an incredible amount of technology that's operating behind the scenes. I know compute has been a big part of the story with you and the team over the last several years. As you scale your infrastructure, and I hear you thinking about that out to the edge at the racetrack, you're thinking about that back at Brackley with the operations there. What are you trying to achieve around visibility, centralized management, and then I know operational consistency is really important for you and the team as well. So why does that matter in your environment?
Yeah, well, first of all, hopefully everyone's seen the ad campaign because I think it's absolutely fantastic. Lots of tongue in cheek. The drivers did a really, really brilliant job.
Yeah.
And it's a great story. So yeah, Justin, absolutely. Again, you're absolutely right. Fans see the car and the driver, but in reality, there's a huge technology operation that underpins every single thing that they do. We've partnered with HPE for a long, long time, so it will be no surprise that we are full stack, trackside and factory, so storage, compute, network, HPE all the way. Compute is obviously at the heart of the operation. ProLiant servers run many of the critical applications our engineers and strategists rely on both throughout the week in the build-up to the race, but then also on race day. Naturally, we're operating thousands of miles from the factory, but the expectation is still the same. Whether we're trackside or back in Brackley, our teams need access to data consistently. They need to make sure that we're operating to a level where we don't get in the way of what they need to do. And they need to have confidence that they can perform their roles and responsibilities without too much consideration. Everyone needs to be working from the same information. So HPE Compute Ops Management really helps us get a centralized view of exactly what's going on in our environment, obviously monitoring, managing. It's a complex environment that spans 24 locations throughout the globe. So making sure we have that clear visibility into what's happening is vitally important on race day. And it helps us stay ahead of any potential issues. Ultimately, the team can then focus on what they're best at, and that's going racing and racing as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah, okay. Julie, we'll talk about Ford, and I'm thinking about as you're scaling your infrastructure, what you're trying to achieve. And so maybe share with us a little bit of how you're thinking about some of the same things that Michael and I were just talking about around that visibility, that centralized management, and that operational consistency across the IT infrastructure that you're responsible for.
Yeah. First off, my edge is not as cool as Michael's is.
Your edge is pretty cool, like the idea of going and touring the factory and seeing how these vehicles are manufactured.
Absolutely. No, you're right. Some of my plants are pretty impressive to see, right? You walk in there, you got multiple different assembly lines going, autonomous, non-autonomous, parts deliveries, lots of different things happening. It is quite cool. But actually, let me digress a little bit, right? But when I started at Ford, my manufacturing partners invited me over to one of our plants.
Okay.
And that's what I was kind of describing there, right? It is pretty cool to see all these different moving pieces, lots of assembly lines, lots of applications that are controlling those robotics, right? And that those applications are running on our infrastructure, right? Yep. And so the basic question is, like, imagine when the infrastructure has an issue, just imagine all of these people, all of these systems, pause. Right? Yeah. And so that's like a resounding thing in my head all the time, right? And so going back to what I described, right, the 70 plus global sites, the architecture and stuff, right, and the opportunity is to have that single pane of glass, right? I need to know effectively what I test in my labs is what I deploy out into the world, and not just on day one, day 10, day 100, 3 years, right, that it's consistently there. Yeah. And various changes can happen, right? You could do firmware upgrades, you could do different rollouts, right? And things may change, right? But how do you consistently know that what you've pushed out is what's out there, right? Again, going back to consistent standards, right? And then alerts, right? If there's a hardware failure issue, how does that bubble up? How do I manage that at a global scale and fleet, right? And that's truly where COM comes in, right? And that's what I get out with COM. And so again, like, we're on that journey right now, right? And I know we've connected a lot on this, and I really appreciate the partnership, right? Your openness for feedback and helping us shape some of the outcomes that we're looking to get.
Okay, well, I appreciate your partnership as well, Dooley. You and the team are really pushing us as we're continuing to iterate on the roadmap, and we appreciate that. Katrin, this one's for you. I know as a lot of organizations right now are reevaluating their virtualization strategies, so share with us a little bit about, for AMD IT, what's driven your strategy there, and what are some of the benefits you've seen so far?
Yeah, no, I mean, at AMD, we look at this from two perspectives. The first one being the broader infrastructure picture and strategy. The second one, we're also looking at it with the lens of the strength of the partnership that we have with HPE. Yeah. So let's take a look at the bigger picture from an infrastructure perspective. Our focus there is that at this time, we had an opportunity to reassess our virtualization strategy as part of the broader picture, and not just as a standalone part.
Okay.
Our requirements evolve around operational simplicity, flexibility, as well as finding solutions that fit within our environment that we already have. The long-standing deep HPE relationship provided us with a good collaborative path forward. By combining HPE Morpheus VM Essentials, as well as HPE ProLiant servers powered by AMD, we found a way forward to modernize our infrastructure without necessarily disrupting the business. What stood out for us from an HPE perspective with the Morpheus VM Essentials solution is very flexible, and also combined with the HPE ProLiant servers, provides us with a great opportunity to leverage their performance as well as reliability. From an AMD perspective, our CPUs are a strong fit for virtualization because of their core density as well as the performance efficiency they provide to us. And altogether, it gave us an end-to-end solution that allows us to modernize while still maintaining control of how we evolve over time.
Okay. Now, this question that I have next is for all of you. I know downtime and disruption can have major consequences across all your organizations. What's at stake if systems go down and that infrastructure is compromised? Maybe we'll start with you, Dooley. Like, what does that look like for you and the team at Ford?
It's bad. It looks bad. Right? It's not an option, right? Super, super critical for us to be up, right? One of my busiest plants, downtime in minutes is millions of dollars, right? So, that's definitely on top of mind at all times, right? And how we can be more proactive rather than reactive, right? Being reactive is, unfortunately, we have to be reactive sometimes, but that's not what I'm striving for. I'm trying to see how I can be more proactive, right? And figure out how we can have predictability in terms of failures and stuff, right? And we run a lot of critical applications and stuff, right? It's not just the manufacturing side, it's all the other business critical systems that are running. The infrastructure is, houses everything, right? So, I want hardware to be resilient, right? And sort of handling itself, if you will, rather than me having to sort of keep up with that, right?
Yeah.
That can self-recover, proactive alerting, proactive issue handling, and that's what we're getting from HP, so thank you.
Okay, all right, well, I appreciate that. Maybe I'll ask the same question for the rest of you. Maybe Katrin on the AMD side, what does this mean for you and the team if systems go down?
Yeah, I mean, in the age of AI and with the adoption, everything is growing, and so security as well as always-on infrastructure is the baseline. We call it table stakes. So from that perspective, we really need to make sure we have a very reliable infrastructure that we can operate on every day, which means everything cloud, compute, in virtualization as well as management have to work together from that perspective.
Yeah.
And at AMD, our teams rely on a global infrastructure day in and day out. And so from that perspective, if there is an issue, pretty much it has an impact on productivity immediately, similar to what Dooley just said, right? And so that's why it matters so much to have secure as well as resilient infrastructure components, because they provide the foundation for our business to keep growing as well as innovating. At AMD, we have a simple goal, which means infrastructure just works, so that our teams can continue to focus on what matters, building great products.
Thanks, Katrin. I love that. Building great products, that's what we want to go do as well. John, just real quick as we're getting close to wrapping up here, thinking about the downtime that impacts Roche, what does that look like for you and the team and thinking about patient outcomes?
Yeah, for sure. If we're saying minutes matter, then delays longer than that absolutely make a difference. If you take the compute-heavy primary, post-primary, or secondary workflows, any interruptions there on the translational research slide will slow down research workflows. And then, of course, in some situations can directly impact patient outcomes. And then on the security side, when we think about patient data and raw sequencing data, security and data integrity are not optional. These are foundational to the work of our customers. So if we think about infrastructure, hardware, built-in hardware level security features can be a big advantage here. Overall, I'd say the customers of our product will not really have the option to balance and trade off one for the other. They need both. They need to protect their data and make sure that they hit the turnaround times needed for what the services they're delivering.
Yeah, okay, and then lastly, for you, Michael, down at the racetrack, what does it mean? I mean, when technology issues arise, I mean, technology just can't stop. So tell us a little bit about what it means for you when it comes down downtime.
Yeah, sure. Well, hopefully it will come as no surprise to anyone that we can't pause the start of the race where we quickly reboot a server if there's some kind of issue. Ultimately, the team need the data to be able to make decisions, and decisions really matter. We're operating in real time during a race, for example, and our engineers and strategists depend on access to telemetry, simulation data, and race applications throughout the course of the weekend, but obviously specifically when the car is on track. If those systems aren't available, the team trackside effectively can't work. They can't respond. They can't make decisions. In our world, seconds matter. Actually, in our world, milliseconds matter. That's how we measure performance. So we put a huge emphasis on resiliency. We naturally need to be confident that if trouble does arise, the team can continue to operate and perform consistently wherever they are, either at the factory back in the UK or the 24 Grand Prix locations throughout the world. They need to be able to work, and they need to be able to work smart.
Yeah. Well, what I love about all these stories and the conversations we've had here is the customer impact really shows up in very practical ways. I mean, we have different industries here. You all have different priorities, but the common thread between all of you is the same. Thank you all for joining me, taking this time to share your stories with us here. We truly appreciate your partnership. Let's give them a round of applause. And now I'd like to welcome back Krista.
Okay, well, that was an awesome panel, and hopefully that really helped you see all the different customers that we're helping. Let's give Justin and our customers a round of applause. Okay, and thank you also to NVIDIA for joining us today and to talk about our new server. And what I'll say is, it's very clear the choice of infrastructure matters. At HPE, we're here to help you build an operational AI to modernize with confidence and create a secure, resilient foundation to power your innovation agenda, because innovation can't wait. Now, before you leave, I want to talk through some of the things you could do to learn a little bit more. First of all, if you want to talk to any of us, we'll be here after the session. And if you want to take a look at any of the hardware, we have it out there on the show floor, and there's several sessions that you can attend as well. The other thing I'll tell you is we talked a lot about HPE Morpheus VM Essentials, and we've launched it about 2 years ago, and it's just gotten better and better and better. So this is the perfect place to get up to speed with what we have to offer that if you're interested. I want to thank you for your attention and have a great Discover.
Thank you for attending. We would appreciate your feedback. Please take a moment to fill out our survey.